Okay, guys, welcome to another episode of the Blues Brothers podcast, a show that discusses all things football and particularly Chelsea FC, with plenty of debates, deliberations, and questions made by the fans for the fans. And this week, I'm delighted to be joined by another guest. Got Nick from That Chelsea podcast joining me. Nick, thanks for coming on and taking the time. Really appreciate it. Like to start the podcast off with the same question for every guest. Simply, why Chelsea for you? What's the story behind you following the club?
My uncle. I think with most people, it comes down to family members getting them in. My uncle got me my first Chelsea kit. I think it was the centenary shirt. I think so about 05-06 seasons. That was pretty cool. My other uncle's a West Ham supporter, so thankfully, I say my Chelsea supporting uncle got to me first. Made me a blue, and just fell in love with a club life straight away. My uncle took me to my first game, I think, following season. FA Cup tie, Macclesfield Town, we won 6-1. Frank got a hat-trick. From that day on, he was my hero. It's just been a real, pleasure. Love. I've been very lucky, what I've been able to witness.
It's been some great times, hasn't it, from starting at that point. I remember that those first Mourinho years, 2004 to 7, I was lucky enough to be season ticket holder, so that's probably some of the best football kind of seen in some of Chelsea's history, really. Certainly a good time to start following the club and seeing a lot of success since then. But moving forward to kind of, obviously this season now, has the start as a whole, discarding kind of the last few matches where performance levels have dipped a little bit, has this surprised you how well we're doing, or are you kind of expecting it off the back end of last season?
It's quite tough, really. I said, look, on our podcast at the start of the season, we did some predictions what would happen in Chelsea season, and we kind of all predicted we come second. We thought we'd just miss out on the title just because of the quality. I think we predicted City would win it just because of the quality they've got. The Chelsea Champions League group, we came second, but in the end that's kind of worked out for the best, fingers crossed, with that draw against Lille. So in quarterfinals of Carabao Cup, I thought Chelsea, the kind of whereabouts I thought we might be. As I said, pretty happy with how it's going. I thought we, certainly this season was hoping for a lot more comfortable top 4 finish, which we should get, and hopefully, challenging for a title, which again, we are very much in the mix. So I'm like surprised, not maybe just the surprise with maybe like up till recently the lack of goals we had conceded this year. It seemed kind of ridiculous, how we conceded so few up till recent weeks, but not too surprised, just purely because Thomas Tuchel is a brilliant manager, and we've got a good squad. And he's, had time now working with this squad, getting his ideas across, and we look good.
Yeah, no, we do. And I think it's so easy to forget that he's not even been here a year yet, and he's already made this much of a difference. So if you look at the likes of, Pep and Klopp and what they've done at Manchester City and Liverpool, respectively, that's taken them a long time to build. They certainly didn't do as well in their first, say, 11, 12 months as what Tuchel's been able to do here. So I think it does bode well. Yes, as you mentioned, a few maybe small cracks have appeared in recent weeks with a lot of injuries in certain areas, and obviously you can't keep performing to such a high level week in, week out, so there's bound to be a little dip. But I think we've done really, really well, and following Chelsea as we do, you're only a couple of poor results away and it's suddenly a huge crisis. But as you said, we're 2 points off the top of the league, last 16 of the Champions League with a favourable draw, quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. I mean, it's not exactly a bad position to be in at all. But obviously, looking ahead to the kind of Christmas fixtures that we've got coming up, I mean, Chelsea in December is notoriously not always a great match. Proved to be the undoing of Frank Lampard last season. So, I mean, what do you expect from these Christmas fixtures? Obviously, we started off with a win against Watford, poor performance really, but we got the points. Obviously, lost to West Ham. 3-3 draw with Zenit, Champions League, kind of a bit of a dead rubber. Ultimately, didn't really matter too much. And then obviously we just scraped by with a 3-2 win against Leeds at the weekend. I mean, Nick, what are you expecting from this Christmas run? Do you feel it's as simple as kind of, if we can get through this and we're kind of say, if best case scenario, we're top, or we're within 5 points by the time we get to that Liverpool game at the start of the new year, then we've got a good chance?
Look, I think ultimately with the injuries we've got to just try and stay in there. I think ultimately we can't really lose any more ground. I think purely because of the quality of the two teams we play. Obviously, I know we've got Liverpool and City in January, but I don't want us to be going into those games knowing that, we have to. Obviously, we will go in wanting to win, but I don't want us to be going in this like having to win to close a gap. Like if we can go into those games, maybe a gap still of like 2 points or what it is now, then I think that's fine. It is crucial. We kind of, just get through December. Obviously, Watford, we were absolutely horrendous. But then we had two brilliant moments. But it's kind of what this team is at the moment. It's almost, we're a bit of a moments team, really. These last few weeks in December, say Watford, we were awful. Watford definitely deserved something from that game, but two moments of brilliance from us and we win. West Ham, I actually think is probably, that first half is probably the best we played in December. Really, we played really well that first half. We were in control. Obviously, we gave a stupid penalty, but we were still winning at half time. And that second half, we just didn't turn up. Losing Kai was a huge blow for that second half, and it wasn't good. Zenit's hard to really read into too much because you've got that team was not great, and when you've got Sarr and Saul on the left side of the defence, you're kind of asking for problems. So Zenit, don't read too much into, and then Leeds was. We weren't good against Leeds, really. Again, it was stop-start. We started all right. We conceded a goal. Confidence drops. Takes a while to get back into the game. We get into the game. We get the equaliser. We then go 2-1 up. We then retreat. We then invite pressure. And then, unlike previous weeks where you'd say we could hold on to a lead, we can't hold on to a lead. It does kind of seem inevitable that we will concede at some point. And then, we go out there having to try and win the game. And this week, we're able to get over the line and do it. So, December's been really weird, really bizarre. It's just been, I guess, traditional Chelsea, which is frustrating given what we're hoping to go for this season. But I think if we can just get through December, some tough games coming up. I mean, Everton, really, we should be beating on Thursday with their injuries, etc. But Wolves before Christmas, that's going to be a really tough game.
Yeah.
And Villa with Gerrard as well, that's going to be tough. So there are some tough games, more opportunities to slip up, but we can't afford to slip up now in the title race. We can't. We've got to be pretty much near perfection going into January because we can't let this gap widen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this at the moment is just about, we're obviously in a slight dip of form. It'll come to Manchester City, it'll come to Liverpool as well. But at the moment, they're relentless and they just don't look like dropping any points at all. So for me, this period, whilst they're so hot and whilst we're kind of re-finding our feet again, I think it's just vital that, forget the performance for now, we just keep getting the 3 points and staying in touch so that we can strike when their dip comes off. I think Liverpool might have a slight dip in January. No Salah, no Mane for the Nations Cup. That's probably going to make a big difference to them. And City do have a tendency to throw up the odd game where they just don't really turn up. Where they drew to Southampton at the Etihad, they lost to Crystal Palace as well. But they are prone to a result there. So it's kind of just crucial that we keep just keep at it regardless of our performances at the moment. I mean, what do you, obviously having started so well, being top of the league for quite a long time, obviously we now dropped to third, unfortunately, after the West Ham defeat. What do you put down to the slight dip in form? And really, arguably, Tuchel's first real difficult spell in charge, you could almost say. Do you think it's simply just down to the Ben Chilwell injury and all the injuries piling up in the centre of the park? Or do you think it's a little bit deeper than that?
I think it's injuries. I'm going to be honest. I think it's injuries. I think Ben Chilwell is a huge blow. He's been in unbelievable form for us. Him and Reece, such a crucial part of our attack. But wing backs this year for us have been so massive. And look, Marcos Alonso, he's a decent player. He's been a very good player for Chelsea. He's, good servant, scored some big goals, helped us win some trophies. But he's not Ben Chilwell. He's not someone you want to be playing week in, week out. And when you go from Ben Chilwell to Marcos Alonso, you notice that difference. You just do. It is just coincidence, obviously, but we haven't kept a clean sheet since Chile's been injured. We have been conceding goals. And it's obviously, that's not all just on Marcus. Obviously, defensively, there have been a lot of individual errors, but I just think ultimately, injuries are hurting us as well because you also need that midfield to, provide some protection when you've had Jorginho playing through the pain barrier. Ruben Loftus-Cheek probably playing more than we'd have liked him to play, basically because he's had to play due to no Kante and Kovacic. You are going to, struggle. There have been at times where our midfield has really struggled. I think Ruben, ultimately since the Juventus game, he's only had one good game really, and that was West Ham. And we are struggling with injuries. His mentality, a question, maybe, you can question it because we see the same patterns happening again, sort of in December with all these, with quite, this group now, like quite a few of these players have been here multiple years. We have seen similar things. So maybe that is a cause for concern. But ultimately, I think injuries are really hurting us because, I don't think you just go from how we looked against Juventus just at the end of November to how we look now without, just without it being injuries, because we are struggling. And I think, Chelsea have got good depth, but like, you don't want all those depth players playing at the same time. That's ultimately what we've had for the last few weeks, and now we're struggling because, as I said, we've got some decent depth, but 1 or 2 to fill in, not 4 or 5 to fill in, and that's where we're struggling at the moment. So it's worrying. And I said we've just got to try and get through this period, because we are making a lot of individual errors now. Even someone like Mendy, who has felt really assured, even someone like his distribution in recent weeks has been quite suspect. Making you feel a bit more nervous now when before you just felt so safe with him. So it's just one of those where I think injuries ultimately have really hurt this team, because we are struggling. And as I say, you take, I know, Van Dijk, Thiago or Fabinho out of Liverpool, they are going to struggle. You take out some of the City's key players, they will struggle as well. They've got depth, but if you take a big amount of those players out like we have, then they'll struggle as well. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, and I think it's irritating when you see people, particularly, I know Twitter's not the best place to look sometimes after games, etc. But when you see people say, "Oh, we should never have loaned out Gilmore and Gallagher, etc." What people don't seem to realise is that you don't have depth of like 5 or 6 people in a squad in the same position. You probably have 4 like we've got, and you don't bank on them all being injured at the same time. So if we'd kept those 2 guys, they would have hardly played, and it would have been pointless. We would have just been thwarting their development. But it's important that we kind of we snap out of these individual errors, because, as I say, it has cost us points in recent weeks. Obviously, United cost points. West Ham, it probably cost us at least 1 point. I thought we were good enough for a draw there. So it's crucial that we do get back into it. But I think it's not a huge course. I think we're more than good enough to do it. But have these last few weeks really highlighted how important N'Golo Kante is to this side? I know he's getting toward, I think he might be 30 just now, or just coming up to it. He seems to be picking up a lot more injuries than he does. Do you but this last few weeks, particularly with how lightweight we've looked in midfield, etc., and how open we've been defensively as well? Do you think really has just highlighted how massive he is for this team?
Oh, look, N'Golo Kante is a big loss. He is a player of his quality. Any team's going to miss him. I don't think it's just N'Golo, though. I think, Kovacic, he was in brilliant form. It's just the fact that we're ultimately having to run Jorginho into the ground. We're having to play Ruben, alongside him as well. I think that is hurting us. It's not just, Kante's injury. It is a multiple of injuries. But obviously, Kante is a big blow. He is a brilliant player. He is a truly, truly world-class player. We saw how good he was last year in that Champions League run. We know his qualities. Any team would miss N'Golo Kante, and a fully fit N'Golo Kante obviously starts for us. But it's tough to say. I don't think it's necessarily just down to one injury, because I also think at the start of the season we'd actually Kante had missed quite a few games. We'd actually done all right with that, and we'd got into a position where we were top of the league, and I didn't think it'd be possible for us to last season. I didn't think it was possible for this Chelsea team to really go challenging for a title without N'Golo Kante. I didn't think Kovacic or Jorginho could do a job for us, but they've proved me wrong. And this year they had put us in a position where we were top, we were doing well, and that was basically without Kante for quite a large part of the season anyway, being in and out of the side. So it's not just Kante, it is obviously, a multiple players. Kovacic is a big blow. He's probably I think this season we were seeing the best version of Mateo Kovacic. And again, this is coming from someone who wasn't necessarily his biggest fan, last season or whatever. So he's coming good. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't want to bang on about it. Ben Chilwell is such a big blow. He just is. I think it really has upset this team, and it does worry me, because I do think it does hurt us, like what we want to achieve going forward. But fingers crossed, there was some decent news outside, with Ben Chilwell today. But he's outside, so hopefully he'll be back, relatively soon. But it's tough. It's obviously Kante is a big blow, but he's not the only one we're missing badly.
Yeah, I think it's just a case of things are just piling up a little bit for us, and it's certainly not panic stations at all. I think football fans can be very reactionary. Certain sections of the fan base can just kind of lose it at the smallest things and think the club's about to implode. But as I touched on at the start of the show, we are in a very good position still at the moment, despite everything that's gone on so far. Obviously, we move on to Everton on Thursday night of the return of Rafa Benitez to Stanford Bridge. I'm sure he'll get a great reception from the home fans. But Nick, this is obviously another, I guess it goes in the category, like the Leeds game, of a must-win really for us. Do you envisage any issues with this game?
Well, I don't want to say I don't envisage any issues, and then this we look back and we've scraped the draw or whatever. But look, we should be beating Everton. They're in horrendous form. It does give me some confidence that they beat Arsenal a couple of games ago. So it's not like they haven't won for forever. And we're that team that helps them get some sort of positive result. Everton just look really bad at the moment. A lot of injuries for them as well. This shouldn't cause us problems. It shouldn't. But it's really hard to predict because, Leeds, well, we were wary it was going to be, still quite a tough game. But with all their injuries, that game shouldn't have been as tough as it was for us. So, look, I don't want to say, it's going to be easy for us. We probably won't make it easy, but I think we should be able to grind out a win. And, if we can get a 2-0 win, 3-1, 3-0, whatever, then that's absolutely fine. That's what we've got to do. Because, as I say, it felt huge. Jorginho's penalty in injury time against Leeds, honestly, to me, felt like that kept us in the title race. I know it might have seemed hyperbolic, but it's December and we didn't want to be from being top against, going into the West Ham game to then being 4 points off City in, just in the space of in 2 games. That would have been truly horrendous place for us to be in. So, that felt huge. And to say it feels like Everton is just a must win. Doesn't matter how we do it, but there can't be any excuses for not being Everton. And ultimately, if we don't beat Everton, then we don't really deserve to be, going for that Premier League title because you've got to beat Everton. They are struggling. They are in bad form. Benitez is the end near for him. We have to wait and see. But there can be no excuses for not being Everton on Thursday, especially at home where they have a horrendous record at Stanford Bridge as well. So there can be really no excuses.
I mean, I think they've only got one. They've got one win since September, and that was obviously Arsenal a couple of weeks ago. In terrible form, got a lot of injuries. So as I say, these are the sort of games, your Leeds at home, your Everton's at home that you have to win if you're going to challenge for a league title. You have to win these games at home against this sort of mid-table opposition. Otherwise, as you touched on, you don't really deserve to be up there in with a shout of winning the league if you can't do it against these sides. But in terms of, obviously, we've got Wolves away on Sunday, which is arguably the more difficult of the 2 games we faced this week. In terms of kind of Tuchel with a lineup for Thursday night, are you expecting him to have half an eye on Sunday, or is it kind of full focus on this one? I mean, do you think we'll see Lukaku from the off?
I mean, that's tough. I'll be honest here. Tuchel, like, I was getting quite frustrated on Saturday with Tuchel with the lateness of his subs. It did feel like quite annoying. We were going long. I can't remember for Leeds. I felt like we were going, ping it up top, quite long for maybe the last 10, 15 minutes, and he wasn't on the pitch. I was thinking, I know Rom's, struggled recently, but that's one of his strengths. You just ping it to him and he can try and hold the ball up. Look, it's tough. Obviously, Rom, Everton, there's probably, quite a nice opportunity for him to play there. I'd probably stick with Kai up top, though. I think Kai, I wasn't amazing against Leeds, but I still think he still does offer us something quite good up there. And I said, I actually think he was really good against Watford earlier in the month, and he was pretty decent against West Ham that first off. I would be tempted to start with Kai up top against Everton. Obviously, I know, we go hark back to the game last year against Everton at the Bridge when we won 2-0. Kai was really good that night as well. Had a goal, I think ended up as an own goal, whatever. Had a goal disallowed for offside, won a penalty, etc. He was really, really good that night, sort of in that false 9 or whatever position up top. So I would be really tempted to play him. I guess, in terms of changes, I guess there's not really many you can make because I don't think Kovacic is out of isolation yet, and he'll be a bit rusty. So you'd still, looking at the same back 3, probably maybe Christensen in for Aspi, the same midfielders played, same wing backs. And I think really the only changes up top is I'd probably take Timo out for Callum Hudson-Odoi, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I mean, I think this one's probably come too soon for Kante as well. Obviously back in training along with Chalobah today. They'll probably make the squad, but I wouldn't expect either of them to finish. To start the game. I mean, if we're kind of in control, we might see them get a few minutes coming on. But if we've learned anything with Kante, it's not to rush him back because he'll just pick up another injury, and we can't afford for that to happen. But yeah, I agree with you. I think most will. There won't be a lot of changes. You touched on Christensen for Aspi, probably. I think the wing backs will stay the same. And yeah, I'd like to see Callum start as well. I just had a quick question come in. Just bring it up on the screen. What are your honest opinions on Ruben Loftus-Cheek? I mean, Chelsea fans love him. He is 25 now, so we can't, keep saying he's a young prospect. He needs to start realising his potential. I think he's shown glimpses, but, the likes of Conor Gallagher sort of tearing it up at Palace and likely to come back into the senior squad next season. Chelsea constantly being linked with Declan Rice as well. Ruben's really got to take these opportunities he's been given. And I just feel that he's just not quite reached his potential in these performances. And I think would you agree that he's kind of almost fighting for his Chelsea career in a sense this season?
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I don't think many of us thought he would have a huge role to play at the start of the season. Obviously, due to injuries, he's played more than he has. I actually think as I said, Ruben up to, say, I think Juventus was, that's a decent mark to measure him, because I think up till then, whenever he played, he'd been pretty brilliant for us, to be honest. Whenever he played well. And then, he came against Juventus and he was good. And then I think, Watford, he was responsible for the goal they scored. He loses the ball in midfield. West Ham, I thought he was really good, but I think that's literally the only good performance I think I've seen from him the last, few games. Man United, he was poor. He was just held on to the ball too long. Leeds, again, I know I saw on Twitter, like, a lot of his stats were good anyway, and all these. So, but I, just from what I saw with the eye test, I wasn't really that impressed with what I saw from him against Leeds. And it's tough. I think I don't want to be, don't want to be too harsh on Ruben, because he's playing probably a lot more than he expected to, probably a lot more than he's used to. But I think, it would be fair to say that his levels have dropped off from what they were early on in the season. I think that's certainly fair to say.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, as Chelsea fans, we all want him to work out, and because he's from the academy, one of our own, etc. There's probably a bit more patience with him. But yeah, these games are so crucial for him, and if he's going to be around next season, still playing a role. I just wanted to touch on someone else before we move on. Lukaku seems to obviously divide opinion, certainly amongst many fans, but I mean, what have you made of him? Firstly, I know he's been injured for about 6-7 weeks, kind of just getting himself back into it. Were you happy when the club bought him back?
Yeah, no, I was delighted when we bought Romelu Lukaku back. I thought that's a brilliant signing. I don't want to say it felt like a surefire thing, but it did. He was brilliant on his debut against Arsenal. That I literally watched that and I was probably like, wow. I mean, I was a big defender of Tammy Abraham. I love the kid. I didn't agree with how Thomas Tuchel treated him last year. But I was like, okay, this is a step up. This guy's an upgrade on what we've got. He's probably, I've not seen a striker like this since Costa. That was reality. That's what, just from that Arsenal game alone, he was superb. And he has struggled with injuries. And look, I think ultimately, at times we've not played, we've not really played, I guess, to his strengths. Although I'd also argue that, he's joined the champions of Europe. And I'd also argue he probably needs to try and adapt to some of our strengths as well. I don't think it's just all, one way. We've got to just play to him and play to his strengths. I think there's got to be a fair bit of a middle ground met. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to really, really measure him. Not West Ham, he annoyed me a lot. I'll be brutally honest. That second half, he annoyed me a lot. He was like a lamppost up front. That was best being brutally honest. He was so poor. But you've also got a caveat, he was coming back from injury and he probably wasn't really fit for 45 minutes of football that second half. So it's quite tough to judge. But I think it's encouraging to say that we can win games of football playing a false nine. I just remember whenever we played, it felt like whenever we played that system under Conte or even someone like Sarri, the false nine seemed, very suspect at times. I didn't really have full faith in it. Whereas with Tuchel, I do have faith in it. So yeah, it's a tough one. Look, Lukaku, he's had a poor start to the season by his standards. Obviously, injuries haven't helped. But I've got confidence in him. He's a top striker. I think it will take time as well. And look, so I don't think it's probably helped that he's not played with, a settled front three. That front three has rotated so much that it's really hard to build up, some chemistry. Because I just think, even that, his first game against Arsenal, he linked up so well with Mason and Kai, and it's unfortunately not really been seen since. But look, I'm not, I'm delighted we signed Rom. I think he will come good. But it's obviously taken a bit more time than we'd have liked. And it's also maybe, realising as well that, he cost 100 mil. Yeah, we want him to be paying more. But also we can survive out Romelu Lukaku, which I think is a really good thing.
Yeah, I think it's important that we've stepped away from becoming so reliant on one player. I think towards the end of Hazard's time at Chelsea, we were so reliant on just one player. And if he didn't play well, then we likely wouldn't win. So it's great that Lukaku's in, but ultimately we're not over-reliant on him and to such a point that we can't win matches unless he plays. But on him still, what do you think we need to do as a team, and what does he need to do as well to kind of get the best out of him? Because I always look every time he plays, I'm surprised at how few chances we create with him, considering how many creative players we've got. We don't seem to create a lot of opportunities for him, but as a caveat to that, I think he also needs to do a little bit more as well. I think he needs to, run channels a bit more, maybe just do a bit more movement. So as you touched on, I know he wasn't fit against West Ham, but it was like he wasn't there for that second half.
Yeah, no, against West Ham, it was like we were playing with 10 men. I mean, probably 8 men, because Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi did absolutely nothing either. That second half, honestly, those three subs did really, annoying bit. Oh, look, with Rom, it's tough. Look, we know, we like to press as a team, and we know with Rom that's not going to happen. He's not that pressing forward. You can probably look into the numbers, but whenever Rom plays out, the amount of times we press, or whatever, it's a lot lower than it was last season. I think ultimately, we've got to. It doesn't feel like we get the ball to him perhaps quick enough when he plays. Whether that's due to his movement, whether that's down to how we play, but I just, it's tough. I think ultimately, is it due to who he plays with? I remember the Southampton game. He played and we had Werner and I think Hudson-Odoi on the wings in that first half, especially. We had so much Southampton left, so much space, and I know Rom perhaps didn't benefit a huge amount from, but someone like Timo did. He was really good, and I think Rom had an offside goal that game. But it's tough. How do we get the best of Rom? Like, I don't quite know, because I'm like, it's not the easiest thing. As say, the lack of wing backs. Again, I think it'd been nice to see Rom sort of. It might have been in Rom in this team when Ben Chilwell and Reece James were in that prime form of theirs. That might have been nice to see. Like, ultimately, I do think we do get a bit predictable with Rom. We try and whip crosses into box. So the amount of times, especially in that West Ham game, we attempted cutbacks that just got cut out. It was quite frustrating. Can we play maybe balls in behind for him? Sure, it's tough. I think ultimately the Premier League is probably teams don't leave on the whole a huge amount of space against us, so we've got to be careful how we play. We've probably got to try and that link up play. And I know it sounds basic, but could we maybe try and go? But he's obviously more talented than Giroud, but could we maybe try and utilize him maybe more at points like we did Giroud? Because Giroud, Hazard said, Hazard loved playing with him, loved that link up play he got. And while, it might not necessarily be the best for Rom, it did help us as a team quite a lot when Giroud did play. So I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't really know the answer on Rom. Probably have to see more of him. But I think ultimately he's got to adapt to us and we've got to adapt to him. I think there's got to be a bit of a middle ground. I don't think we can just go one or the other, because say he's 100 million, but he came to a team that won the Champions League playing a certain style of football. Tuchel had success playing a certain style of football. So that's got to be a middle ground met. But yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one to really see. Obviously, I don't know, who our best front three is yet to try and really work with him. So it's quite tough to say how you get best out of him. But yeah, so it's quite tough to really work out.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I think there's no doubt he's got immense quality, and I don't think there's a more proven goal scorer in terms of in terms of Lukaku. He's scored goals absolutely everywhere he's been. So I'm not saying I'm fully confident that it will work out. I think he's a great striker. He's a mould of striker that Chelsea have had great success with over the years. He's in that Drogba and Costa type striker that we've, as I said, had success with. He's not like a Morata or a Torres or a Shevchenko, that kind of striker we have not had a lot of success with over the years. And I agree with you completely. We have to find a middle ground. We need to do a bit more for him, but he needs to do a bit more for us as well. And I mean, I'm fully confident that it will work out. But I guess with our kind of number 9 curse as such, there's always a slight niggling thought in the back of your mind that whenever a striker comes to Chelsea, no matter how good they've been anywhere else, you always worry that it might not work out because so many top quality players have come and it hasn't worked out. But hopefully, Rom can be different. But yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take time. He's missed 6-7 weeks with that ankle injury, and that's time on the training pitch that he would have been, working on team shape, working with like link up stuff with the other guys at the top end of the pitch. And he's obviously missed all of that. So it is going to take him a little bit of time, but hopefully, he can get a few goals and get on his way again. But I just wanted to
sorry, can I just add to that as well? I think Kovacic is probably quite a big loss to this as well. Because you just look at his first goal against Aston Villa. That's Kovacic. That's a brilliant ball. That's kind of what he wants. He takes a touch inside the defender and score. I think Kovacic, as much as again, some player who quite a lot of us probably were critical of him, his final ball, final third this year, his assist stats, he was creating a lot more chance for us. His final ball was a lot better for us. I think that's probably a big blow. And again, I think also ultimately he might benefit as well playing with Timo more. I know it was only briefly, but again, we played that game against Spurs when we won 3-0, especially in that second half. Him and Timo were linking up so well. I know we were obviously 2-0 up. Spurs were trying to go for it a bit more, but he was linking up so well. He was, bullying defenders. I think ultimately, he probably is, he kind of, went out when he got injured. That was just as we were starting to, just before we started to really hit that peak form we hit under Tuchel. Before that, we kind of just been getting by, and he's not really And then by the time he's come back, obviously a lot of those players who were in form have also been injured. So it is quite tough. But yeah, I think obviously we'll have to wait and see. But hopefully when we've got, all these players back, then hopefully that will benefit him.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree. Fully fit squad back and everyone playing, then I think Ron will start to show the potential and show the reasons why we signed him. And that nicely kind of segues us into, obviously, January window coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Chelsea don't tend to do a lot of business in the window. It's notoriously quite hard to get players in. Obviously, one of our great January signings, Nicolas Anelka, a while back. That was good. Worked out a lot better than Fernando Torres did. But everyone's going on about the left wing back position. You touched on it earlier. Chilwell, good news today, as you said, he was back outside doing a bit of light jogging on the grass. Could be available mid-January. Even at a best case scenario, he's not going to be up and running really till, let's say, maybe February, March, reaching potentially the form he was at. For me, that news doesn't change the fact that we need to go and sign a left wing back. For me, the Sound experiment, that's done. For me, that doesn't work. And Alonso, we can't continue with him for the rest of the season if we're going to be serious about winning the Premier League. Nick, where are you at with this left wing back situation? Do you feel the club need to go and address it, whether it's buying someone or recalling someone from loan?
I think there's the potential for this to work out, relatively well. Obviously, Luca Digne has reportedly fallen out with Rafa Benitez at Everton. I think he's a good player. I think we could obviously we have to wait and see how long Benitez last example, but he'd be someone I'd be, if we're available, go after in Jan, because again, obviously that would then leave us with Alonso, Chilwell and Digne. But then if gives us, maybe we go, okay, cheers Marcos, thanks for everything. We let him go in the summer. Chilwell and Digne as options there. That might be an option. Look, Maatsen in the Championship is a big call to make. He's been playing for Coventry. It's quite a step up to then, going from playing for Coventry to then stepping into the side, going for a team, going for Premier League title. And I know Mason and Tammy, etc., and Reece, went from playing in Championship to Premier League straight away, but they weren't, when they came to Chelsea, they weren't playing in a team expecting to compete for a Premier League title. They were basically just learning on the job. Let's see if we can get top four. So I think the different expectations are there now. So I would say it's not really an ideal scenario. But yeah, Sao Niguez just ain't it. I don't really want to see him wear a Chelsea shirt again, to be honest. Like, if we could terminate the loan in January, I would. But obviously, Billy Gilmore and Conor Gallagher, we can't recall now because they played a certain amount of games. So in their contracts, so we can't recall them now. So that's unfortunate. But we're realistic. We are stuck with Sal now to the end of the season. But I don't want to see him as a left wing back. Emerson, I doubt we'd recall. It's an option maybe, but again, it's kind of like an Alonso situation. It's just, do we really want to rotate the two of them? And Emerson's probably doing quite well in Lyon, getting regular game time, and it probably helps us for selling him in the summer. So there's not really an ideal scenario, I guess. Yeah, if we can maybe get someone like a Digne, or if there's like a good loan option that just opens up in the left wing back role for someone, who knows, then maybe that's an option. But otherwise, it's just probably rotating Alonso, Sal, maybe Callum Hudson-Odoi, maybe Christian Pulisic at left wing back for however long necessary. I don't see an ideal scenario. I don't see an easy, replacement out there for us at the moment. So it's quite hard to call.
Yeah, no, it is a difficult one because I think as fans, we all want someone to come in, but it's not as simple as just going and getting someone. You've got to find the right profile, someone that's going to be good enough and that will slot into a title challenging team. And then you don't want to be paying extortionately over the odds, which is why I said Luca Digne it would be a great option. Be interesting to see if he's in the Everton squad for Thursday's fixture. So yeah, I think he's definitely someone we should look at. I agree with you on Maatsen. He's obviously doing quite well at Coventry, but he hasn't played any Premier League football ever. So it's a massive ask for him to come up and expect him to do a job in multiple competitions, going for big trophies. I don't think that would really make sense, and neither would recalling Emerson, because I think we'd obviously lose value on that buy option as well that Lyon have got. I think for £12 million they can get him for. So I think if we recall him back, that option disappears. So you probably want to keep that sweet. It's just a tough one. It's just a tough balance to get right, because you look at it like you think, don't really want Alonso to go with Alonso for the rest of the season, but then equally, I don't particularly want Aspie to play there, and I don't want Sao Niguez to play there. And then, unless it's an absolute emergency, Hudson-Odoi or Pulisic there is just a no-go for me. Like, they're not defenders, and you can tell when they play there that they don't enjoy it. So I know you've got to do your job for the team sometimes, but I don't think you want to see that on on a consistent basis. But yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. But hopefully we can sort it out, because it is a bit of a problem that needs addressing. I mean, apart from the left wing back situation, I mean, I see it, unless something unbelievable becomes available, there shouldn't really be any other incomings. Wouldn't expect anyone else to come in.
No, exactly. I wouldn't see, anyone to strengthen first team squad. Obviously, Chelsea do some just make signings just for the future, like years down the future. But I don't see any signs to be made to strengthen our first roster team now. January should be quite quiet for us, I reckon.
I mean, do you reckon there'll be any outgoings at all? I know, but you probably don't want to let too many squad players go, given the fact, injuries. We're going in 4 competitions still. We need that depth, rotation, etc. I mean, the only one I can think of potentially, do you feel that Ross Barkley could be shipped on?
I mean, I guess so, yeah. I mean, he's really only played Carabao Cup and obviously he did have that one Premier League start against Burnley where he wasn't horrendous. He was all right. Yeah, I'd imagine he's one we maybe consider. Obviously, I think if, the left centre-back situation, I think Malang Sarr is someone who has been talked about alone, but not unless Chelsea can get someone else in. So that one might be interesting. But yeah, outgoings again is quite tough. I don't think really there'll be anyone. Maybe a few weeks ago, people might have thought Hakim Ziyech, but again, he's been in relatively decent form when he's played, and I think he has a role to play for us still, as frustrating as he can be. So I wouldn't see really any major goings aside from maybe Ross Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, January is normally quite quiet for Chelsea, as we've touched on. So yeah, essentially, if we could bring in the left wing back, I'd be delighted. But ultimately, I think we can probably get by with the current squad we've got. But yeah, the left hand side is a bit of an issue that obviously a lot of fans would like to see addressed. So hopefully the club see that in the same way. We're just going to move on to some questions now that have obviously been sent in. We had a few, so I'll do our best to get through all of them. Nick, first one. This one seems to come in quite a lot. Declan Rice. Would you like to see him at Chelsea next summer? I mean, I see it on socials all the time. Loads of fans wanting him to come back. I'd love it to happen, but when you actually then take a step back and think about it realistically, A, he's going to cost a lot of money, and B, he's going to want to play. So I would say that one of Kante, Jorginho, or Kovacic would probably need to leave to make space for him even in the squad.
Yeah. Obviously, look, I would love Declan Rice at Chelsea. I think he's a fantastic player. I think we could get by with those 4, to be honest, because again, we've seen Kante does have injury issues. Jorginho has been playing through the pain, and Kovacic, seems to pick up injuries. Whatever, last year he missed sort of towards the end of the season, he missed about basically a month and a half or whatever, roughly something like that. Or he missed a lot of games. So I think, if Chelsea, you want to be playing in all fronts, and I know obviously Rice would want to play straight away, but I think you with Rice, you're not, you're looking the long term as well. You're looking someone 10 years. So if he doesn't maybe play as much as he would like in the first couple of years, he'd still play enough. We've played Champions League football, we play a lot, and it would give us options. We're crying out for Declan Rice in this situation in midfield we're currently in now. So I know obviously then you've got the knock-on effect of Wapping, someone like Conor Gallagher. He's been out on loan twice. This, next year he'll probably want to really break into Chelsea. So Wapping, someone like Billy Gilmore, etc. Those things to consider. But ultimately, I think, Rice, obviously, the price is going to be interesting. Chelsea won't want to pay over the odds for him. I just don't see it happening. I'd love to see it happening. I really want to see it happening. But there's so much talk about it. It was all, everyone talks about how much they love Rice at Chelsea. I don't see Rice coming to Chelsea. I really want him to, but I just don't see it happening. And again, West Ham will Ray Wenger, and they could be playing Champions League football next season. So he'd probably want to stick around for one more year. Look, if the option came to sign Declan Rice, I would sign him, but I don't think we have to sign Declan Rice and offload one of Kante, Jorginho, or Kovacic. Purely just because Jorginho might be here maybe a couple more years. Obviously, it depends. His agent will never shut up about he may be returning to Italy one day, so maybe he goes there. Kovacic has some injury problems, and Kante is now sort of 30 plus whatever. He's getting more and more injury issues, so. I think we could sign Rice, and we could find a way. We would make it work, because again, you look at they've got all this talent in all these attacking positions. They spend a lot on their attack, and they can just rotate them quite easily. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if however much 80 million or whatever Declan Rice is on the bench sometimes for us. I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing in the world, because all top teams have squad depth. Chelsea sides of the early years, obviously we weren't paying that much money for players, but midfield of Lampard, Ballack, Essien, etc. Makaleli, someone like Jeremy could fill in there. Lasana Diarra, there were options. Chelsea had back there. So I don't think it's actually a bad thing to have loads of quality and loads of depth. And I think if you sign Declan Rice, you're looking long term as well, not just the immediate short term.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and at 22 years of age as well, it's not essential that we get him next summer. I think there'll be other opportunities, but one thing we can't afford to do is let someone like Manchester City or Man United swoop in and get him, because I think it's clear that he probably would quite like to come back to Chelsea. We'll have to try and get agent Mount on it, their best mate, so see if anything can be done there. But I think it's more likely that we end up with Tchouaméni from Monaco. I'd probably expect that to happen next summer, far more likely than Declan Rice. On to the next one then. We've had how important is the Carabao Cup this season? Obviously, we saw when Mourinho first came in, that was the first trophy kind of we won as a group, and it kind of set us on our way to a lot of success in ensuing years. I mean, is the Carabao Cup important to you this season?
At the start of the season, on our pod, I actually predicted we win the Carabao Cup this year. I don't know why, I just had a feeling. We're in the quarterfinals now. We are probably the favourites. Liverpool are there, but Klopp doesn't usually tend to play a strong side. It's fair to win. Yeah. Saying that, I think we'll see a rotate. We'll see a B team against Brentford. I think we'll see a team similar to what we've seen in the previous rounds of the Carabao Cup. Is it important? Look, if we don't win it, we don't win it. It's a shame. But I also do see that as of right now, it's probably one of our most realistic opportunities for a trophy. So I would like us to go and win it. We'll just see what happens. Obviously, I don't know if it, again, I've not looked, properly closely, but I don't know if the semi-final is there a potential of the semi-finals at all clash with a Club World Cup. If they don't, then, that's fine. But obviously, if they do, then we might find ourselves in a situation where Liverpool did a couple years ago, where we have to basically just play the kids or etc. But I don't know exactly all the dates. But if it doesn't clash and we're all good, then I'd say, look, the Carabao Cup, it's not, Tuchel's not going to be judged on if he wins or doesn't win the Carabao Cup. Realistically, this year he's winning the Super Cup. He should be winning the Club World Cup. There's no excuses of that, and he's realistically a decent season in the Prem. He's got a good chance as any with the FA Cup. We always have got a good chance with the FA Cup, and with this Champions League draw, we should be getting to the quarterfinals easily. So I think it probably takes a bit of less pressure off. Given that we can probably go far in other competitions, but as I said, I would like to see us win it. It's been a while since for a lot of us fans anyway, obviously there was some of the FA Cup final last year, but a lot of, been a while since, Chelsea fans had a day out at Wembley. So it'd be quite nice to have a day out at Wembley in the new year sometime. But yeah, hopefully we can go far in that competition.
Yeah, I hope so as well. I think it's actually a good competition to win. I went to the last one. Last time I made the final under Sarri when we lost on penalties to Manchester City. That was obviously disappointing, but yeah, I think it's the first opportunity to win a trophy. We've got a great chance. It's quite open. I know it's coming right in the midst of a rush of fixtures, but I think we've got the squad depth to deal with it. We should be able to get past Brentford, and then your semi-finals and then final. So we're within touching distance of a day out at Wembley, as you said. So yeah, I think it's important that we do our best. But as you said, ultimately, at the end of the day, there's much bigger prizes up for grabs, and we're not going to be judged on that one cup. But it would be nice. It would be nice to put it in the cabinet again. On to the next one then. How much of a blow is it going to be losing Edouard Mendy for January to the Nations Cup? Obviously, we've got to have Kepa stepping in. I have to say, since Tuchel's come in, I think Kepa's done really well. I'm not saying he's as good as Mendy by any means, but I think he's more than reliable as a backup, and he has done well this season. I mean, do you think it's a big blow?
Losing Mendy, of course, is a blow. But let's say you counter that with Liverpool will be about Salah, Mane, etc. They're two huge players for them. City, I don't know, Mahrez is he unavailable maybe, but I've got confidence in Kepa. Like me, probably like all Chelsea fans, we had no confidence in Kepa before Tuchel came in. We thought the guy was a liability. He's Tuchel. One of Tuchel things he's done well, he's rebuilt Kepa, slowly and gradually. Obviously, he's made a name for himself from being a penalty specialist in shootouts. Obviously, that's something he's got over Mendy. Mendy can't really save penalties, Kepa can. But look, obviously, there would be slightly less confidence just because also you throw in, the opposition we're playing. But then again, when we went to Spurs earlier in the season, it'll be a different Spurs this time. But we went to Spurs earlier in the season, Kepa in goal because Mendy was out injured. And we did a job. We won 3-0. Kepa didn't really have to do anything. And what he had to do, he was fine. I've got confidence in Kepa. It's obviously not the ideal situation to be in, but he whenever he's played pretty much in the league under Tuchel and in the cups, he's been reliable. So it's not the ideal situation, but yeah, I've got confidence in him.
Yeah, I think I do as well. And in sort of all the positions we could be missing someone, I think keeper is probably one of the ones where it's not as crucial as losing, say, a key outfield player, for example, like Liverpool will, and like Manchester City will obviously lose Riyad Mahrez as well. Last couple then, whilst we're on the Club World Cup theme, how important is it that we add this to the cabinet? Having obviously last time we lost in 2012, I think that's when we had Rafa in charge. And you don't get an opportunity very often to play in the Club World Cup. It's against teams that we should comfortably be beating if we're being respectful and honest here. For me, it's really important we get this one done because you don't get an opportunity very often to play for it.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's crucial we win this. I will never forgive Benitez for ballsing this up. I will always hold this against Rafa Benitez. So yeah, it is crucial we win. As say, I think they're changing. I don't know, but I thought they were changing the format of the Club World Cup. In a couple of years, somewhere. So they, it's kind of becomes harder to win because you have more previous winners of the Champions League, not just for current winners. But yeah, so we're playing lesser opposition with the greatest respect to them. So. I'm pleased. I think whoever it was, Palmeiras won because it meant we avoided like Kennedy, David Luiz, etc. There was a potential, but one of them could have shocked us in the competition. But yeah, no, it's a competition we should be winning. It's a competition we have to win, and ultimately, it's a competition we haven't won yet. And it's a competition, it's a very exclusive competition. You can only enter it by winning the Champions League. So it's certainly one we want to win. And again, it just makes the season that bit better if you've got that trophy. We judge the Chelsea season on the whole by the trophies we win, and we've already got the Super Cup in the bag. We've got the Club World Cup in bag, and I know we'd obviously like a more significant trophy than those two as well. But it just does give us something to look back on at the end of the season. As okay, we didn't maybe do what we want, but there was still some trophies there, some good moments to look back on. And as I say, it's also just I guess from Tuchel's point of view, if he wins that, then he's got the clean sweep of the big trophies on the European front, obviously with the Champions League, the Super Cup, and that trophy, and then he can go right. I've got that. Let me go for sort of a domestic clean sweep, and then I've got an argument for being Chelsea's greatest ever manager because I've won it all. I've won it on both fronts.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree with you, mate. This is really important for me that we get this one in the bag, and I think we will. I think Tuchel's a fantastic manager. I think he's a great knockout manager as well. So yeah, I think that bodes well for us, and I fully expect us to add that to the cabinet. Last one then, mate, before we wrap up. Thoughts on Chelsea potentially moving on from Stanford Bridge in the future? I mean, there's been a few rumblings about this in the past. The old Battersea Power Station site didn't quite happen. You look at Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, even like teams like West Ham, Spurs. I hate to say it, they've got the best stadium in the world. Chelsea, in that sense, obviously a massive football club in terms of quality of players, quality of managers. And trophies they win, etc. But you'd say one thing that was lacking was a stadium to go with that. We all love Stamford Bridge. We love going there. It's full of history. But seemingly not possible to kind of expand the capacity on the current site. I don't think we own the hotels, etc. So it's quite difficult to expand there. Firstly, do you think it will happen that Chelsea eventually leave Stamford Bridge? And kind of what do you feel about it?
Well, I'm not sure we can leave Stanford Bridge due to the CPO, the Chelsea pitch owners, and they actually own the own the bridge, own pitch, whatever. But it's one of those things where, as much as we all love Stanford Bridge, as much as we kind of love what it's like, we love how close we are to the pitch. It's probably it is one of those things where you are really close to the pitch, where there is a really good view, etc. And the atmosphere is really good, on those big nights. It is one of those where for a convenience point of view, it would be quite nice. I'm not going to lie, going through the virtual waiting room every however so often for tickets, it would be nice if it was a bit less stressful. It makes it that bit easier if we have a bigger stadium. Obviously, you get bigger stadium, it changed. I guess it does change it. But I say, as I said, pointing out, I've been to Spurs New Stadium twice to watch us play them, and it is a beautiful stadium. It is probably the best stadium in the Premier League. It would, it probably, it puts Chelsea, I guess, higher up in terms of status while having a bigger stadium. There are a lot of reasons to, increase the size or whatever, move stadium, etc. I get it. And maybe one day it will happen. I don't know. I don't see it really necessarily happening anytime soon. It does seem to be quite quiet on that front. I know people kind of talk about it a lot and go, it'd be quite nice to do it. I'm happy with Stamford Bridge as it is right now. I'm going to be brutally honest. I don't have any burning desire to move away or to increase capacity, but obviously there would be perks if it was to, capacity was to increase, just, in regards to tickets and it becoming easier, and it would be easier for more people to go to games, etc. But I think, it's also just one, be careful what you wish for. I always say this, be careful what you wish for. Look what happened to Arsenal.
Yeah.
Moving from Highbury to the Emirates. I don't know exactly, but I reckon a lot of Arsenal fans probably aren't happy with that move. It took West Ham a long time to really fans to get to be, probably okay with moving to the Olympic Stadium now, or the London Stadium as it's called. There's probably some that still aren't happy with that move, but it seems like now Moyes is doing a good job there. That that stadium seems to be a happier place, but for a long time that was a really poisonous place. So yeah, I always think be careful what you wish for, as in terms of what you're doing with this. But it's one of those where if it happens, like, I'm probably not going to be as maybe vehemently opposed to it as maybe I was in the past.
Yeah, 100%. I just think it's one of those things that naturally is probably going to happen. And I guess, football evolves. We like to be traditionalists with certain aspects of it. I love the old school grounds, your White Hart Lanes, your Highburies, your Upton Parks, etc. And I think kind of Stanford Bridge probably one of the last of those. And it would be a shame if we moved on, but I guess you have to evolve with the times. And it would be nice to have a great stadium. And I think at some point it will happen, but I don't think it's kind of top of the priorities right now. But I certainly wouldn't rule it out. And anything that kind of gives fans a greater opportunity to go to games and make the ticket buying process just a little bit easier, as you said, is certainly a plus for me. But yeah, that's all the questions, guys. Thanks for sending those in. Before we round out, Nick, where's the best place for people to check out your stuff, your podcast, socials, etc.? Where's best for them to go?
Yeah, so if you've enjoyed listening to me for the last 50 or so minutes, you can find us on Twitter at @TheChelseaPod, on Instagram at @TheChelseaPod, on whatever podcast platform you listen on. Just search That Chelsea Podcast and we should come up. Yeah, it's just a podcast by me and my mate Jack, just talking about Chelsea. Kind of just do a weekly show looking back on the matches, talking to a variety of people, on the Chelsea Twitter side. I've had, some just, FT personalities, I guess, and also, privileged enough sometimes to speak to some journalists, etc. as well. So, we just talk Chelsea with our mates, and it's good fun. And hopefully, if people have enjoyed this, then they can come over and check us out.
Yeah, fantastic. I've linked all that in the description below, guys, so make sure you go and check that out. Some good stuff on there. That brings up full time on another episode of the podcast. If you've been watching live on YouTube, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining in. Make sure you do smash a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, guys. Appreciate all of your support. Nick, thanks very much for joining me. Really appreciated it. Enjoyed that. Guys, we'll catch you in the episode next week.